Welcome to the Arithmetic Zone and Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm finally back from my hiatus and I got another math video for you guys to enjoy for the holiday break. So, as you saw from the title, this is about statistics, but what is statistics exactly? It's the study and practice of collecting and interpreting large data. It's a very large and broad mathematical concept that can be the sole focus of an AP class or even a college major. But today we're just going to look at some basic high school level statistics. So what do I mean by that? We're going to look at examples where we're given a representation of this data through numbers, and we're going to evaluate various statistical definitions and representations, including the mean, which is the average of the data values, the median, which is the midpoint when you order all the data values, the first quartile, which is the midpoint between the minimum and the median, the third quartile, which is the midpoint between the median and the maximum, the range, which is the difference between the minimum and maximum, and the mode, which is the most frequently appearing value in that data. So we have a lot to unpack here. So we're going to first look at frequency graphs, which are dot plots and bar graphs. So these graphs display the frequency of each data value. I think everyone has seen a bar graph before, and it's pretty easy to understand how it works. On the bottom, you have your values, and then in the vertical axis, we have the frequency of each value. So 56, the bar goes up to 2. That means 56 appears twice. 68 goes all the way up to 6. It means the value 68 appears 6 times. Dot plots are another way to represent this, and they're structured very similarly to bar graphs, where you have dots, or in this case, crosses, and then each cross is at the frequency value. So if you look at both of these graphs, you can see that they are both based on the same data. Note this 68 has a frequency of 6, just like the bar graph, and the 56 and 60 have a frequency of 2, just like the bar graph. And sometimes these dot plots can be represented by having other dots or crosses below. So instead of just having the cross at the frequency value, they might have it so that there is a cross for every time it appears. So it would look something like this. So each cross represents one time it appears. Sometimes they can be represented in this fashion, but just for simplicity's sake, I just decided to put the cross at the frequency, which is another common way it can be represented. So anyway, I'm going to move on. Now I want to evaluate a frequency graph. So this is the same data we saw earlier, and the first thing you should always do is you want to get all the values and you want to order them from smallest to largest, while also having the amount that each value appears. So what does that look like? Well, I start from 56 because that's the smallest value we have. We have 256. So I put 56 2 times. Then I move on to 60. 60 appears 2 times. I put the 260s. We have 364, so we have the 364s. Then the 668s. Then the 572s, the 476s, the 480s, the 284s, and the 188 and the 192. So we ordered the data from least to smallest while taking the frequency into account. And ordering the data this way makes it much easier to find these terms. So the minimum, that's just the least, that's just the smallest value in the whole data set. And because we ordered it, we can clearly see it's 56. And the maximum is just the largest number, which is 92. So we solved those pretty easily. What is the range? Well, as I said before, the range is the difference between the maximum and the minimum value. So what is 92 minus 56? It is 36. Now the mode is the most frequently appearing value in the whole data set. And if you look at our bar graph, it's pretty clear what that value is. It's 68. 68 appears 6 times. That's more than any other value, so the mode is 68. Now, what if there were 2 values that appeared most frequently? Let's say 72, the bar graph went all the way up here. Well, simply we'd have two modes, 68 and 72. But in this case, it's just 68. Now we're going to find the mean and median. So if you don't know, the mean is just another word for average. We're going to find the average of these data values, and we have to take the frequency into account. So it's a painful process. You essentially add all of these numbers up and then divide it by the number of values in total. So if you were to do that, you'd add them all up and then divide it by 30, because if you were to count all these numbers, you would get that we have 30. So finding the average, it's 72.13 repeating. I really should have put the ... or better yet, I should have just wrote the repeating bar above the 3. That's my fault. Now the median, what's the median? The median is the midpoint of the data. It is not the same as the mean. And when we try to find median, this is why it's so important to order the data in this fashion. So what I like to do to find the median is have my data like this, and then from each endpoint from 56, starting from 56 and 92, I'm going to cross out one value at a time until I reach the middle. So we're going to cross out 56, then cross out 92. Cross out this 56, cross out this 88, and then we're just going to keep going like this. You don't want to do multiple from one endpoint at a time, because then you got to keep track of the number of times you crossed out a value. Crossed out 4 of them. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and well, we made it to 2 values. Now we can't just cross out both of them, because then we're going to be left with no value. When you're left with 2 values in the end, what you do is you take the average of the last 2 numbers to get the median. So they're both 72, so the average would, of course, just be 72. Now, this happens when you have an even amount of items. If you had an odd number, so let's say you just get rid of this 92, and we're going to go again. 56, 88, 56, 84, and so on and so forth. Make sure you keep track of the number of times you're crossing out a number on each side, just in case you lose track. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now this time I'm left with only a single number. That's just my median, 72. So pretty simple. Now we're going to get into the quartiles. So the median itself is a quartile. It's the second quartile. And it's essentially the midpoint, the 50% mark of the data. The first quartile is the value that represents the 25% mark of the data, while the third quartile represents the 75% mark. So, as I said before, the first quartile is the midpoint between the minimum and median. The third quartile is the midpoint between the median and the maximum. So, how do we go about that? Well, remember where our median was? I hope you kept track of it. Our median was right here. Remember, it was in between these two 72s. So now we're going to do the same strategy where we cross out a value from each endpoint, but we're going to start from the median. One of the endpoints is going to be from the median, while the other is going to be from the minimum or maximum. So let's do the first quartile. So 56, 72, 56, 72, and then we're just going to keep going. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we just got one value, 68. That's our first quartile. Now for the third quartile. So we're going to cross out this 72, this 92. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We just got 80, and that is our third quartile. So when you have an even set of numbers, you have to find the average of 2 values to get the median. But if you're finding the first and third quartile, you would just get a single value. So our first quartile was 68 and our third quartile was 80. Now again, what if we had an odd set of numbers? Let's get rid of the 92 again. Our median, when we had this value, this set of numbers, where we got rid of the 92, our median was right here. There was no average between two values. So this time, let's try to find the first quartile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This time we have two numbers. We can't cross both of them out, so we have to find the average. The average of 64 and 68 is 66. Now for the third quartile. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then again, we have two values in the end. Find the average. So the average between 76 and 80 is 78. And remember, quartile 2 is the median. Don't forget about that. So that's what happens if you have an odd number of values. Now, knowing our quartiles, what we can do is make a box plot, which is very different from a frequency graph such as a bar graph. A box plot shows you the spread of the data. So if you look at this box plot right here, this is based on the values that we just evaluated with the 92 included. And if you look carefully where each of these little bars are, they each represent a specific term of the values. So 56 was the minimum, 92 was the maximum. Now this little center bar, or not really in the center, but this bar inside of the box is at 72. What was 72? It was our median. Now, what about the 68? Remember the 68? The 68 was our first quartile, and this 80 was our third quartile. So if you know the quartiles, the median, max, and min, you can make a box plot in this fashion. Now notice it's not completely even. This side of the box is thinner than this top side. Again, it's to show you the spread of the data. When you order all the values like this in an even manner, it shows you that most of the values are closer to 56 as the median is closer to the minimum than it is to the maximum. So, and one very important thing to remember, if you are given only a box plot of the data without given an actual like data table or bar graph or dot plot of the values, you cannot find the mean or the mode. Now the mean was the average of all the data values. A box plot does not tell you what the actual values are. It just tells you the spread. You cannot figure out the individual values just from looking at a box plot. So you cannot find the mean. And you also can't find the mode either. You can't find the frequency of each of the different values. That requires more information. So remember the limitations when making these kinds of graphs. But that was a basic overview to simple high school level statistics. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it to be useful. And I also wish you guys Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and a Happy Holidays. Hope you guys really enjoy your time, and I'll see you guys next time.